Well, 2014 has been very much characterised as a challenging year for a lot of microcap companies. But I've always taken the view that if you don't want to be the best kept secret in the share market. So if you've got a good story, and I think what we've really seen happen over the last sort of couple of years is a lot of companies have grown through organic growth, but what we've seen emerge, particularly in the last 6 to 12 months, is a lot of companies have realised that they're now in a position because they can raise some more capital because the equity markets have been fairly favourable up until we saw some changes occur over the last few weeks. But many of these companies have been able to look at acquiring businesses through acquisition, funding those, which will effectively make them earnings accretive. And the market's actually quite like that story. And we've seen some of those companies start to appreciate reasonably significantly as a result of that. We're talking to people that invest in the small cap sector over the course of the last 12 months. A lot of them have said that they've made more money out of buying into a stock, selling out of it, and then sort of taking the view that if they still like the story in 6 months' time, they'll probably buy back into it. And I think that's probably going to characterise how money's been made this year, because it's quite intriguing to think that the share market, here we are, nearly 7 years after the peak of 2007, and we still haven't seen the All Ordinaries Index get back to that peak of 6,800. And up until about a week ago, we were thinking, well, maybe the All Ordinaries is going to drop below 5,000. But what we've seen is the market's faith restored a bit. We've got the US economy continuing to power away with the unemployment rate there now dropping below 6%. So I'm sort of taking the view if the biggest economy in the world can keep improving, that's going to be good news for us. And I think ultimately our share market should continue to rise, although this rise is a much slower one, and also taking a lot longer in the cycle, to get back to that previous high of 6.8, which I think will be achieved at some point, but it certainly won't be this year. I'd be pretty optimistic to think that if the market finished about All Ordinaries at about 5.5 to 5.6, that'd be a pretty good outcome for 2014. What's happening largely is that a lot of microcap companies have been able to attract some fairly significant capital over the last couple of years. That hasn't always been the case, and I think that's enabled those companies to then invest that money in growing those businesses. I think some companies have also taken the last couple of years to reduce significant amounts of debt and also sort of reposition the business, get a better looking balance sheet, and I think that in itself will attract a whole new group of potential investors. We're seeing more companies emerge, in different sectors. I think the biotech sector in particular, I think for a long while it was very hard to attract funds into the biotech sector, but what we're seeing now is that people are prepared to take that investment, go through the various phases that are required for a successful biotech company to resolve. But the big benefit is that the gains can be substantial if that biotech company is able to prove up and commercialise what it's doing, and may ultimately be either taken out at a substantial premium. I think also you've got to be conscious of the fact that people are investing in the microcap sector. It's high risk as well, and there can be high rewards. So you're always going to have a few companies in your portfolio that don't perform, but it's those one or two outstanding companies that sort of make up for the rest of it. I think we've got a lot of factors sort of weighing up at the moment, but in particular, I suppose it's the outlook for the biggest economy in the world, being the US, where that economy is going to go. All the signs are that there's significant recovery occurring there, but we've also got the issues in Europe coming up again as a bit of a issue. So I think probably the outlook in the short term, as in the next 3 to 6 months, is that the market, if it sort of holds up or has a sort of gain of a couple of percent, I think that will be probably a pretty good outcome for the end of the year. But as a year, when you look at a calendar year, probably 2014, which had all sorts of promise, is probably going to be characterised as a bit of a disappointment, I think, for a lot of investors. But I'm pretty optimistic that in the next 12 to 18 months after that, we should see some better gains in the share market.